All right, let's go ahead and get started. We have an amazing guest speaker here from the Department of International Business, Dr. Eugene Seeley. So please give him your rapt attention. Dr. Eugene Seeley worked in the software industry for 9 years in international marketing, focusing on Europe and Latin America. He just informed me earlier today that he was the 35th person to get the first Mac ever manufactured. That's pretty incredible. This guy's been there since the beginning of the marketing company. Anyway, he came to UVU, at the time, UVSC, in 1995. Dr. Seeley is professor of international business in the Woodbury School of Business at UVU. He teaches undergraduate and MBA classes in international business and international consulting. And I know a few of you have mentioned being interested in that. He also oversees the international business program at UVU. His bachelor's degree is in French, master's in international management, and PhD in strategic management. I bet that was awesome. I bet that was incredible. He is proficient in French, Spanish, and Portuguese. He studied German and Russian. So I expect any of you who speak any of these languages to quiz him on those languages if you're fluent in them. That'd be awesome. Especially Russian, that'd be cool. He currently teaches a section of the international engagement class in which he takes MBA students on a week-long trip to Europe. Isn't that the college student dream? So let's give it up for Dr. Eugene Seeley.
Thank you, everyone. I do have to make a correction. I was 35th at BYU.
Oh, I apologize.
So, today people go to an Apple store like the day before. So this was the early days. I went to the bookstore 20 minutes before they opened to get the first Macintosh computers that was sold there in 1984. And we were in a line and they gave us numbered receipts. And say you're 30, I got one that said 35th in line. So, and I still have that. So any Macintosh enthusiasts out there. So I love the latest technology. So any VR people here? VR? No VR, no Quest?
Nobody here has a Quest? I was going to say,
Did you get the Quest 3 yesterday? Did you get the Quest 3 yesterday?
No, I have a Quest 1 actually.
Oh, a 1. I'm sorry. Okay, well, if you ever get the 3s just came out yesterday, so I got mine yesterday on the first day. There's another professor, Dr. Peterson, and I, on Saturday nights, we usually kill zombies and other things, to protect the universe. Anyway, and Kim, we've got Kim here who's in my Survey of International Business class. So good to see you, Kim. Again, my name is Eugene Seeley and Professor of International Business here. Let me tell you a little bit about my background. I was born and raised in Long Beach, California, Southern California. Grew up going to the beach as a kid 2 or 3 times a week. But I was kind of the nerd. I was president of the chess club in high school. And I actually took, Red Cross had like 3 classes you would take to get certified as a lifeguard. And I took the first 2, and the third one was going to be completely on the beach. So I learned a lot of techniques for life-saving, that sort of thing in water. And then I just thought, lifeguards are just smart. And kind of a bad image for me, and I'm a nerd, and go to college. And so now I realize that since I work with nerds, if I had been a lifeguard on the beaches of Southern California when I was younger, I would have been so cool. I didn't realize that that would have been a great image. Anyway, so I went across town to Brigham Young University long ago. My father is an aerospace engineer, so he told me, computer science is the future. Major in computer science. And it's great. And I love people that major in computer science because we are the beneficiaries of their work almost every minute of every day. I took a basic class. I had an Apple II computer, and I did my homework on that. It was cool. Then I took a Fortran class, but then I took COBOL. And in those days, you may have heard stories, but you had cards, and you punched out the chads, and you had a stack of cards. You would go wait in line at a mainframe, and then you would hand your stack to a student worker. They'd put it in the mainframe, they'd run it, and then they'd take the stack out and hand it to you. And then you would go back and wait in another line, and then another student worker would be pulling out the printouts, and it was one continuous piece of paper with perforations. And they find the break and they break it up and give it to you. And then you'd go look at it, and it would say, I'm sorry, you have 7 cards out of order. No, it wouldn't say, I'm sorry. It would just say, you have 7 cards out of order, and I can't run this. And I remember thinking, well, put the cards in order in your memory and run my program. What's the problem? Anyway, that turned me off in programming. So did an LDS mission to Chile, and by the time I came back, I decided I wanted an MBA. And the advice I'd received my freshman year in college, doing courses like this and going to job fairs and everything else, is if you get an MBA, in those days, the recommendation was to minor in business and major in anything else. MBA programs have shifted a bit. In those days, you would repeat a lot of your bachelor's courses in your MBA. Now, most MBAs sign you off on the courses you took in undergrad. So intro to marketing, intro to management. And our MBA is designed that way too. So now you can major in business, get an MBA, and save a year. So in those days, that wasn't common. So I decided I could do Spanish, it'd be easy. But I thought, hey, I'll learn another language. So I started from scratch and learned French. After a year, I went to Quebec on a study abroad program, and a university up there that hosted us. French is a second language, they called it, Français pour le non francophone. And then I stayed an extra semester at that university, came back and lived in the French house at BYU. They have these language houses. And the way they're set up is you'll have a roommate who's a native speaker, and you sign an agreement that when you're there with your roommates, you will only speak the language of the house. And so you get practice speaking whatever the language is. And then I had a French roommate that would correct me, and the French relish correcting people's French. So it was very good. The French are very, very, very frank. In fact, they've been that way for 1,000 years. That's why the word frank in English, it basically means be like the French. You know, tell me exactly how you feel. You know, that's when we say please be frank with me. That means please be like the French, and they're still that way 1,000 years later. So, but anyway, then after some time there, I moved into the Portuguese house, a brand new Portuguese house. Any Portuguese speakers here? Temos alguns que falam português. Ótimo, ótimo. And so I had a roommate from João Pessoa, and so the Portuguese speakers would get this joke. So when I entered my room, my Brazilian roommate was there, I would say, "Seu Eugene." My name in Portuguese is Eugene, but I would say, "So Eugene," which in Portuguese it means it is I, genius, instead of Eugene. And then my roommate would say, "Okay, papel higiénico." What? Toilet paper? Anyway, so that was our running joke. Portuguese. Sorry. So anyway, so after that, I went to an MBA program, got married, went to Arizona for Thunderbird School of Global Management, and I recommend people there. I've had a lot of students go there. The international business program we have is designed as a feeder into Thunderbird. Particularly, we have 2 faculty that graduated from Thunderbird. What's Russ's? Johnson, yes. So I don't know if anyone have had intro to business from Russ Johnson. He's also a T-Bird. Or I guess we're Sun Devils now. It got bought out.
That's housed in ASU.
Yeah,
though, right?
It got bought out by ASU, and now the ASU has 2 business schools. I think it's Carleton is their main one, and they have Thunderbird now too. University of South Carolina is the other big international business school. University of South Carolina, Columbia, and we have 2 professors that graduated from there. So Thunderbird is usually number 1. When it's not, South Carolina is in the world for international business. But anyway, after there, when I graduated, my wife is from Montreal in Canada, and I'm from Long Beach. We were ready to move anywhere in the U.S. or Canada, and I got a job in Provo, Utah, working for a software company. So, which was cool. Automated language processing systems. We had these computers that could translate languages, mainframes. It was cool. CIA was our biggest customer. Now, Google Translate blows away anything that we did with mainframes back then. So it's amazing how technology advanced. But anyway, And then I worked for several software companies, a volatile industry. I don't think any are left. ALP Systems, Novell, WordPerfect, Gazelle, Paperwise. They're all gone. But anyway, then I, 95, came here to teach international business here at UVU, or UVSC at the time, Utah Valley State College. By the way, when I worked in international marketing, I worked for software companies. Sometimes I'd be in charge of sales internationally in one company. The last company I worked for, Novell, I was in charge of marketing for Latin America and traveled all over Latin America using my Portuguese and Spanish, working with distributors, and we had an office in Sao Paulo and in Mexico City. And then when we absorbed WordPerfect, we had an office in as well in Buenos Aires and in Venezuela. So I worked with those offices and traveled around. I was on the road about 50% of the time. Got lots of frequent flyer miles, so that was cool. So anyway, working in marketing and sales with software is a very particular industry. Lots of great experience and everything else. And I came here and I taught for 6 years here at UVU in international business, took over the international business program, which was only a year old when I started. And then after 6 years, I took a sabbatical and started my PhD at the University of Utah, which is the only PhD program in business in the state, but a good one in strategic management. And that took me 4 years. And by the way, I know it's a tiny niche area, strategic management. If you know anyone that's studying PhD in strategic management, ask them what they think of the University of Utah. And they will say, oh my goodness, Jay Barney's there. So Jay Barney, I don't ever heard of him, but he is probably the second or at least the third greatest professor of all time in strategic management. The greatest, third most. Michael Porter, number one, Coase, Jay Barney, but anyway, he invented what's called, or came up with what's called the resource-based view, which if you take business strategy, you'll learn about that. Also called the VRIO system. And it is a brilliant theory. It's just so brilliant. When I walk around Walmart, I think about the resource-based view. And I say, oh, that's not going to last, or that, oh, I see what they're trying to do there. You know, and my hobby is predicting things that will, you know, come and stay and be sustainable, and things that will fade away because based on the theory of the resource-based view, whether they'll stay or not. So it's a robust theory. It really is.
Do you do investments based on that strategy?
What's that?
Do you do investments based on predicting?
No. It's just kind of, this isn't going to last, and that's not the advantage they think it is. And this is a significant advantage. Anyway, I could go on and talk about the resource-based view, but you'll get that in your strategy class. Anyway, so then I was a PhD and been publishing. I've been associate dean here for 7 years. I helped set up the MBA program and the financial planning program. Anyone doing financial planning? Financial planning? Okay, well, it's an area to consider. We do have one of the top 10 programs in the nation in financial planning. So I helped set that one up. And then I went back to faculty about 9 years ago and have been enjoying teaching and researching and getting my, so it's an interesting transition from being what we call a professional in residence with experience in an MBA to a PhD and doing research. So there is, people, ask, well, why do you need PhDs teaching? There is a depth of understanding that comes when you're a PhD or when you have a professor that's a PhD that you don't get from those who are professionals in residence. So we have most faculty are either straight through PhDs, academics, or they came from industry and are teaching from experience. I'm one of the few that have done both. And so those that come from experience can say, I can tell you when I was in Germany, we had this contract with the distributor and they said, go sue us. And it would cost you more to sue us than you would if you got the money back. And so, yeah, we did this, we talked to lawyers and they were right. So we got to find a new distributor in Germany. That credibility, that experience is wonderful. But then when you have faculty that have PhDs, there's a depth and variety of understanding that is really useful if you can absorb that. For example, in strategic management, there's a very popular guy originally from Utah as well, like Jay Barney, Clayton Christensen, who's written a dozen books. He wrote The Innovator's Dilemma, fabulous book, very well, but in the world of strategic management, he's not one of the greatest. He's not a Jay Barney. He's not a Michael Porter. Why? His theory is not as strong and as robust. And he's very good at describing phenomena and looking at why decisions were made there, but his theories are a lot weaker. And so right now, the theories presented in Innovator's Dilemma, Tesla has turned on its head. And at the end of his life, he said, electric cars. My theory predicts that golf cart companies would one day be the masters of the automobile industry. And we have Tesla doing everything backwards to what my theory predicts. Working on this, trying to figure it out. So, whereas the resource-based view is much more profound. So, when you have faculty with PhDs, they can give you those insights, and you say, wow, Christensen, so fabulous. No, it's good stuff, but you've got to understand the weaknesses and the things in those theories so that you are better equipped when you go out there, and you don't just blindly say, well, read the Innovator's Dilemma and you'll be fine. Well, there are some weaknesses in there, or maybe people read it and that's why they're fine. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to tell. When I was young, it was Tom Peters, In Search of Excellence, and there's Malcolm Gladwell as well that has, and Thomas Friedman, The World is Flat, lots of theoretical challenges and such, and you'll get good discussions in that. So anyway, that's a kind of a little bit about me, and I want to talk to you about my international business degree. Any questions about my career trajectory?
I just want to make a quick comment. Something that we've been talking about a lot in this class is, hey, what are you interested in? Exploring what strengths and skills have kind of naturally come to you in your life, and seeing how those will pan out and why they're worth developing. He mentioned he was a nerd growing up, and he had this interest in technology and computers. Got into computer science and said, no, this isn't for me. But what do you know? After he graduates, that first job he had was at a software company. So your interests and your skills, they can transfer, and they transfer from job, they transfer from industry, and that's why it's still valuable to exploit and leverage whatever skills, strengths, and talents you have. A lot of us are duolingual or bilingual, and how can you take advantage of that in your future career? So that's something that you do want to spend time developing and exploring. We talk a lot about getting in the game and just doing something, because you would be unsurprised that 5 years from then, a network connection you made at that position, even if it's completely unrelated to what you're doing now, will eventually come full circle and give you an opportunity of a lifetime. And so that would be my question to you. What were some network connections that you made and built younger in your career that developed into something later on?
The reason why I'm here is I served on the board of directors for the World Trade Association in Utah when I was working at, I think it was Novell, as in the industry. And there was a professor at BYU who was chairing the committee. And we did luncheons and we talked about international, we had guest speakers and networked on international business. And I remember chatting with him, Lee Radabaugh, about, what the state of teaching international business was. Because when I went to BYU, they had no program at all. And so, I'd see him regularly and made that networking connection. And so that, then there was a guy on the committee who was from UVSC, who was the international business professor. And so I made that connection and learned about the program here. He got fired. And so I learned that there was an opening. So I applied, and then I got the position. So I had the connections from being on the board of directors of the World Trade Association of Utah. And then later on, Lee Radabaugh, when I went and got my PhD, he ended up being on my dissertation committee. And so, I made those kinds of connections. I have to tell you about another connection. I was at a conference in Orlando, great place for a conference. My wife and I were taking an extra day. We went to Disney World, and there was a young Chinese woman that was cleaning up the table and restocking ketchup and things like that in one of the fast food restaurants there, and started chatting with her. And she had finished a master's degree and wanted to go on for a PhD in financial planning. And I said, oh my goodness, you ought to come to UVU. We got a new program in financial planning and everything else. And then several years later, we had a faculty meeting. They served us breakfast, and I just happened to sit next to her on her first official day here at UVU. And she said, you're the guy that at Disney World told me about you, and your wife told me about UVU and the program here. And then when I was at Texas Tech, I heard about it. I said, yeah, now she's department chair for the finance department. So it's you never know where you'll make a connection that will be valuable for your career, either advice or connections with people that help you, or about openings or what have you. So those are invaluable. You never know. So make lots of connections, chat with people. Chat with people while you're waiting in line at Disneyland. I mean, you never know. It's amazing. And if you go to Disneyland, where are you UVU here? Because people will say, oh, I'm from UVU. Or people that work there saying, I'm a student at UVU. Really? What's your major? Anyway, so even Disney World, I've bumped into people from UVU at Disney World. So any other questions? Charles, let me talk about our MBA IB program then. We have a program in international business here at UVU, and there are 3 programs in the state. UVU is the only one that requires proficiency in a second language. So others at Weber and Utah State, if you want to take a business language class or something, it's possible. So those of you that speak another language, this is kind of cool. We require all of these classes. So if you've spent time abroad, you probably come into 202G or 3050 level, and you can pass out of these classes, so you can get a semester's worth of credit towards your international business degree by taking an exam and passing out of those language classes. They're all required. 3200 is a business language class, and 4200 is as well. We have that for Spanish and Mandarin, and I think French is going to start doing it again. We don't have it for Russian, but we'll take an area studies class. And we also have, my clicker will work. We also have 8 credits of general elective, and it's moving up to 9. We're making a little change and substituting. And you can use those extra for anything. Culture classes, additional language classes, a minor. You can fit in a Portuguese minor, or a Spanish minor, or a French minor, or a Russian minor, Chinese minor, and do it all in 120 credits. 120 is the minimum required credit hours to get a bachelor's degree in the state of Utah. So you don't have to take extra classes. If you have a previous major, or you want some extra business classes or anything, you could do that. As I mentioned, this is a great degree if you want to go on for graduate school, an MBA, law school, and there are lots of jobs where they want you to have a business degree, and the fact that you're proficient in a second language is a real bonus. Like being in the management of a construction company, you can speak Spanish, and you have an international business degree from UVU, that means you're proficient in another language. In fact, you can ask someone, oh, UVU, international business, what's your language? Weber State, Utah State, you might say, no, I don't have a language, I'm just getting international business. Here, you've got to have a language. So, any questions on this? Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm in Spanish 3050, and I do want to test out of those previous ones. Where do I go to figure all that out?
Talk to your teacher. I think they were switching from testing to a minimum grade. I'm not quite up on that. So it might be if you get a C or better or B or better, then you can buy the credits. Chat with your Spanish professor. So we have something for that. Yes.
Is there much opportunity to use niche languages in
Oh, Czech and Slovak. I would suggest you study Russian. They're very close. I've been taking Russian, just auditing for 8 years, and they're it's very similar. Может понимает, когда я говорю по-русски. It's similar enough, but they go pretty fast, and so a lot of words in common, and in the Slavic language group, so they're pretty close. So I would do Russian is what I would do, and it wouldn't be that hard. You can go right through it. I notice there's a lot of students that speak another Slavic language, Polish, Ukrainian, Slavic, or Czech, and Slovak. Anyway, so that's what I would suggest. That'd be the best thing to do. We will accept other languages, but you have to find a place to take 3,200. So BYU offers 3,200 in Italian and Korean that we don't, and we'll accept that. Or if you find it from some other institute.
Is it worthwhile to study language on my own before taking classes out, or is it better to start classes?
It's going to vary by language and what programs are available to study on your own. I would suggest you meet with an advisor in the language and cultures department and chat with them about that. So, Olga Gerald is the Russian professor, and she'd be happy to meet with you and talk with you. Yes?
Just with learning languages in general, would you say that once you learn how to learn a language, you learn other languages?
No. I thought, oh, wow, this is going to be easy. I'm going to learn French. I already speak Spanish, and wow, it was hard. And it's not till you get to the higher levels where you understand grammar well. But getting your brain to process, it just, I don't know. Some people have a real gift. I have a bit of a gift, but I find it very hard to get used to a new language. When they explain grammar, it's like, oh, yeah, I understand all that. We're explaining what the subjunctive is or what declensions are. Okay, yeah, no, I understand the concepts, easy. But now you've got to get the words in. Maybe it's a new alphabet like Cyrillic. Sounds are very different. Intonation's very different. Yeah, it's going from Spanish to French was not easy. Spanish and Portuguese are really close. They're almost dialects. And if you go from another Slavic language to Russian, they're very close, almost like dialects. So that's not easy. They say a language is a dialect with an army, because I've heard Danish and Swedish are basically the same language, but they have their own armies. So they call them different languages.
That's why I speak Czech and Slovak. 95% of
Yeah. And then if you go Ukrainian and Russian, as you go from where the fighting is in Russia, the Ukrainian sounds much more Russian. And as you go to the Polish border, Ukrainian sounds more Polish. And so it's kind of variations there. Any other questions? Okay, so we're the business school. So we do promotions. So we have some swag for you. We have some T-shirts that we have made up. We have some women's cuts and men's in various sizes. And on the back, it says, UVU, Woodbury School of Business, we mean business, entreprise, business, Wirtschaft, negocios, Shenyi, business, and negocios. So it has all of the basically 8 languages that we teach here, English, including English, 7 foreign languages. So, and it says UVU, Woodbury School of Business on the front. So please come up and grab a T-shirt. Tana can help you with sizes or whatever. You're welcome to take one up and put it on, see if it fits. These do shrink a bit, so if you're concerned, go up
the
size.
bigger size up because they do shrink.
So please come on down. Come on, everyone, come grab a T-shirt, and Tana can help you.
Let's give Dr. Eugene a big round of applause.